What's up, people? Hopefully you're all doing well. Today we are ranking every Resident Evil movie from best to worst. I've been playing Resident Evil games ever since I learned how to crip walk. In the movies, while I watched a few of them here and there, there's too many. 11 to be exact. There is both animation and live action, and we will be ranking all of them. If you grew up watching these movies, then you'll know that they lose the plot very quickly and veer far away from the video game storyline while still be inspired by the game. And we are going to start off with the very first one. The year is 2002 and you're visiting your aunt's place and you're running around being a nuisance. How does she stop you? How does she shut you up and keep you from breaking shit in her house? Well, obviously by popping in the Resident Evil movie on VHS, of course. This movie was so good when I watched it as a kid. I'll talk about this later, but the laser room scene is just peak cinema to this day. The movie follows our protagonist, Alice, who was created for the live action movie series by the writer and director Paul Anderson. This will become more apparent later as to why he did that. At this point, I feel like they should have just created all other characters and set the movie in the Resident Evil universe and made Alice the focal point. But they decided to loosely follow the plotline of the first two video games, being inspired by both entries since they wanted to use the liquor from the second game. The movie opens up with an absolute banger and a mysterious figure putting the T-virus and the antivirus in a case. And if you slow the footage down a bit, you can see their face while they close the door. And I gotta be honest, man, the virus in those vials looked awesome. It's among the recognizable movie horror props. From your Freddy Krueger glove to your Jigsaw reverse bear trap, you'd recognize it if you saw it. Then we have the first death in the movie that made me scared of elevators for a while. One thing I don't get is why they didn't try to open the doors more. They were just happy with the small opening that they had. Shockingly enough, I would go back personally if I saw that I couldn't fit. This woman saw a small opening and thought she can fit, but only one arm and her head fit in and decided to stick there. And the only reason she's dead is because everyone in the elevator sucks. No one tried to help her or pull her up. Now we cut to Alice and she's waking up in the bathroom and roams around this massive mansion. And I have to say, the audio mixing for this movie was horrible. The quiet moments are extremely quiet and the loud moments are jump scare worthy. I jumped back multiple times, not because something scary happened, but because the audio obliterated my eardrums. Then this team of Umbrella Squad break into the mansion and they capture a random guy that was grabbing Alice and running away with her. And this is my personal gripe, but I hated the fact that they took the masks off as soon as they broke into the house. Why did you even need the mask if the purpose of it is to take it off and show who the character is? Also, the girl from Fast and Furious is in this movie. She was alright, not too terrible.
Blow me.
Alice is suffering from a short-term memory loss due to the gas that knocked her out. We learned this later on, but I figure I'd tell you now since I'm gonna skip the explanation of that. They go underground and find the train and take it to what we learn as the Hive, and it's being controlled by an AI. I know, goddamn clankers. And when the virus broke out, the AI shut down the entire facility and killed everyone in it. Awesome. They walk through the Hive's floor to reach the bottom level to shut down the AI and destroy the facility, which doesn't make any sense because if you're gonna destroy the Hive, why not just do that? Yeah, why do you have to go all the way down and shut it off? Just destroy the, I don't know, drill down and just blow the whole thing up. Here comes the coolest part of the movie. By the way, it's the laser room, which, contrary to popular belief, this was in the movie before the video game. I don't think I need to explain why this was the coolest scene in the movie. I only have to question why didn't the laser cut the medic's hair? It cuts the guy's fingers, her neck, but not her hair. Okay, dude. The chain link laser was great. The eye sort of melting out of its socket was also really cool. 100% highlight of the movie. 10 out of 10 scene. After the scene, they show the holograph image of the Red Queen, and it's represented by the looks of the head programmer daughter. I don't know why they decided to do that. It looks real bad, even by 2002 standards. They shut down the AI and that somehow opens every lock in the facility, and everything that was in a cage is now loose. All the test subjects that were under lock and key are now free to roam, which means zombies. There were also way too many jump scares in this movie, and you can tell most people had no idea how or what zombies should act like. Since it was the first movie, it wasn't really understood to just shoot them in the head, so a lot of bullets were just wasted. And at some point in the movie, the girl who's in the Fast and Furious is bleeding out of her arm, and she started mocking the zombies because they were reaching towards her, and she asks if they want a taste of her blood, which makes no sense since they're not vampires. Anyway, Alice begins to regain her memory, and as you would expect, she's a badass fighter. She apparently wanted to expose Umbrella for testing on animals and creating the virus, but of course the plan didn't work out. The movie really gets better later on, starts off way too slow and has too many cuts and audio imbalances, and weird sexual tension between Alice and the girl from FNAF. At the end of the movie is also the beginning of the second movie. Matt, the guy who was with her from the start, gets taken, and you hear them say they want him in the Nemesis program, and Alice is half naked with wires and tubes coming out of her. That's the movie one done. Was it good? Not really. Was it bad? Not really. It was just okay. It's really a middle of the pack kind of movie. It's inoffensive. It gets a B tier. This is a good baseline for the ratings of the other movies. I am a believer that sometimes the sequel is far better than the original. The Godfather Part 2, Spider-Man 2, Shrek 2, and now Resident Evil 2, aka Apocalypse. This movie was heavily carried by Mike Epps. He plays LJ, and every time he's on the screen, it feels like chewing 5 gum. Very refreshing to have him there. The dude was hilarious, and it cuts through a lot of the silliness of this movie. But it starts off with Umbrella sending out cars to valuable assets for the company, and we get introduced to a man in a wheelchair who happens to be very important to Umbrella. Since Raccoon City is now being quarantined, no one is allowed to leave. Kind of insane how powerful Umbrella is in this universe. Then we cut to where we left off the last movie, with Alice waking up half naked and seeing a destroyed Raccoon City. Then we see a Jill Valentine dressing up and heading to the police station where the cops are trying to arrest zombies, but Jill already knows to just shoot him in the head. And for whatever reason, this scene was chaotic. Like, a police station is always chaotic. Like, they talked about it behind the scenes and they were like, well, a police station is always crazy, so we gotta make it look insane. At this point in the movie, Jill is unknown to us. We didn't see her in the last movie in the mansion, so we can't be impressed by the fact that she's a survivor. They head towards the only exit out of Raccoon City and see that Umbrella has already set up a checkpoint and only allowing important people out. This is where one of them turns, and this goes back to not trusting people in an apocalypse because no one told others if they had COVID or not. And look how widespread that got. I'm not trusting anyone during a zombie outbreak. They shut down the exit and open fire on civilians, which pushes Jill and other survivors back into town. During this, we learn that the guy in the wheelchair has a daughter that is still in Raccoon City. So he starts looking through any security camera and trying to make deals with whomever to get his daughter to safety and the promise of a way out. In some church in Raccoon City, Jill gets attacked by lickers, and they meet Alice, who comes to their rescue in the most unrealistic way imaginable. Also, there's too many dual wielding happening in these movies. It's never effective, and it bothered me so much every time there was an akimbo scene or whenever someone picked up another weapon to use. Also, Jill and Alice are so hostile towards each other for no reason whatsoever. It didn't make much sense other than Jill doesn't like other women. She's sexist is what I gathered personally. They leave the church and make a deal with the doctor to save his daughter. And also, Carlos is in this movie as well. He doesn't look like this, but he looks like this. I honestly forgot about him until I rewatched the movie. He makes the same deal with the doctor. Nemesis gets introduced in possibly the coolest way. He is targeting the STARS members, which apparently there's 15 of them in Raccoon City, from what I remember. And once Alice meets Nemesis, Umbrella decided that this will be the perfect subject to test out and collect data from their battle against each other. So now, instead of STARS being the primary target, it switched to Alice. We move forward with the story until the ending, and this is where the movie gets funny to me. They have the guy who was in a wheelchair on the floor for some reason, just disrespecting him like that. Then they force Alice to fight Nemesis, but she breaks through to him because it's actually Matt from the previous movie and he has feelings for her, so he eventually stops attacking and starts working with Alice. And the cripple who was on the floor gets shot for some reason and he ends up killing the guy who shot him, so it feels really good seeing that. The movie ends with Alice being naked again, and this Dr. Isaac's caressing her face in the most uncomfortable way. I felt weird watching him touching her like that. It was really awkward. I honestly don't know why he was doing that. The actor, I mean. Overall, this movie was for sure better than the last one. Was it S tier though? No. I'd watch it again because Mike Epps is in it and he does a good job alleviating a lot of the moments where the movie is trying to be serious. But I wouldn't go through it again for the story or the epic battles between Alice and Nemesis. Also, Alice runs down a building looking this stupid. A tier. This movie was really bad. It starts off like the two previous ones with Alice doing Naked and Afraid. Then she dies. The end. S tier. As fun as that would have been, it doesn't really end there. We learned that Alice has been cloned thanks to Dr. Isaacs. He's trying to build a harem of Alice's so he can caress them. This was actually one of the worst movies out of the list that I've seen, and it's only the third one. It does have Mike Epps in it. He dies before he can do anything to make this movie better. Spoiler alert, by the way. The characters we should care about in this movie are Carlos, Claire Redfield, and Kmart. They are part of a convoy that is driving across the Nevada desert, which would make you think it would be cheaper to film, but the budget was $45 million. Too much money. I'll tell you why in a second, because I can guarantee one thing and say they didn't spend that budget on sets. Dr. Isaacs finds success in creating a slightly smarter zombie that will take orders. However, they are very aggressive. This does make me wonder if they even saw the Nemesis. He takes orders. All they had to do is find someone who was emotionally detached from Alice and she wouldn't be able to break through to him. They find refuge at a location and they start getting attacked by crows as they slept in many of their cars. Most characters in the convoy end up dying apart from Carlos, Claire, and Kmart, and Alice shows up, and let me tell you, man, this is where all the budget went. I hope these editors got paid a shit ton of money because Alice now has superpowers, not super speed or strength, which is canon for Resident Evil since we saw Wesker do that. No. She can create force field and control fire. Well, more like deflect the fire and spread it across other crows and save everyone. Dr. Isaacs managed to find Alice because she used her powers and sends a team out to capture her so he can see how to make more clones like her. During this time, Alice wakes up after passing out from controlling fire and being a hero. Kmart is there, and the movie fails to make us feel anything for her. I'm supposed to care because she gave Alice a bracelet and opened up a little bit, but I saw through the act, man. You're not fooling me. Alice tells them about a place called Arcadia out in Alaska, so they decide to drive to Las Vegas and see if they can get there. It's about a 2-day trip driving from there, or a 6-hour flight. Isaac sends a team of zombies to fight Alice so he can collect data from their fight, and he ends up getting infected and runs away from there while the convoy follows the helicopter, which tells me they are going to be flying to Alaska. Dr. Isaacs uses too many antiviruses vials to stop the infection of this new strain of zombies, but he ends up becoming a tyrant and he ends up dying. Carlos dies and everyone else apart from a few people who take the helicopter and fly out to Alaska. They also change the appearance of the Red Queen from the original movie, and now she wears all white. I don't know, man. This movie was really bad. They lied to me and tell me that a helicopter is gonna fly out to Alaska from Las Vegas, but helicopters only fly up to 400 miles. I'll be generous and say it'll take 1,000 miles before it stops. Even then, they'd still have another 1,000 miles to go. They do show Wesker in this movie, and he doesn't do much except sit around and talk and threaten Dr. Isaacs. Remember this because it will be relevant later. But this movie was at the bottom of the tier for me. I wouldn't watch it a third time since I already had to watch it twice to remember what happened. D tier, which stands for doo-doo. Next movie. This was the first feature-length animated movie in the franchise, and they did a great job. The characters are great, the animation is decent, the story and setting was fantastic. So I'm just gonna tell you what they did right compared to the previous movies. Firstly, they establish someone we hate. In Extinction, they try to make us like Kmart so that we may feel something when Alice and her separate for the first time. But like I said, it'll take more than a bracelet and opening up to get me going. The senator in this movie is horrible. The worst person I ever seen. And the worst thing that happens to him in this movie is that he gets slapped by Claire. I'd want her to slap me too, but I guess the bad guys get all the good things happen to them, I guess. Sure, dude. And to give you an idea on how bad he is, he literally shoves a child in harm's way when it wasn't even needed, so he can save his own skin. He could have just ran away without putting someone else's life in danger, but no, he took it upon himself to make sure we really hate him. Leon is also in this movie, and he's just great. Honestly, I can't really hate him at all that much. I am biased after all. The plot of this movie is that Wolf Pharma is creating a vaccine for something called the G virus, which is a new strain that was created after Umbrella fell apart and Tricell took over. This movie balances the perfect plot and twist because while watching the movie, I thought the senator of Wolf Pharma was behind it all, but I was wrong. It was actually someone else involved who was trying to sell the virus and cure to other countries. And now if he was successful, any country would have the power to monopolize a cure and sell it for an insane price. Monopolize? Monopolizing? Manipulating? I don't know, man. It's a word up there. Monopoly, right? Anyway, in the 3 live action movies so far, they somehow failed to deliver anything that is remotely this decent. They were somewhat enjoyable to watch, but I was flabbergasted watching the plot of D-Generation unfold. And they clearly knew exactly what the games were about. They could have provided a more concrete and coherent story without making the video game characters irrelevant. Carlos was supposed to be the love interest, but he dies in the 3rd movie halfway through without building any connection between him and Alice. And there is a lot of these build-ups to nothing, and they will become more apparent later on. But for now, this movie gets an S tier. Worth the watch, though the animation is a bit sloppy and the senator doesn't die. For Afterlife, the original director who did the first movie returns to take over after 2 poorly written live-action movies, and they decided to combine both live-action and video game sequences together, and what a smart choice that was. At this point in the film, the T-virus is no longer the main focus. Now, it is a parasite since it can be controlled by one person. This movie came out in 2010, so long after the Las Plaga has been introduced to the Resident Evil franchise. And shockingly enough, the movie does not start with Alice being naked. It actually starts off with her fully clothed. I actually had to pause to double check and make sure I am watching Resident Evil. And the opening scene shows multiple Alices fighting Umbrella, and you wouldn't believe it, there's so much dual wielding off the bat, man. There's also a lot of the same footage being used, just mirrored to give the illusion that they filmed 2 different scenes. Wesker is also in this movie, and he steals the show every time he's on screen. I have to give credit where it's due. Sean Roberts does a great Wesker. Since Alice is an experiment done by Umbrella, she's infected. So the most relevant thing in the opening scene is the fact that he heals Alice, making her human again. Now we cut to her catching up to where the previous survivor group headed to in Alaska. She finds the helicopter on a beach and no sign of anyone being there. Remember how they tried to build up the relationship between Kmart and Alice? Yeah, they don't really expand on that here. She roams the beach and finds Claire passed out with the mind control device attached to her chest, the Scarab. In the video game version of this device, it's meant to administer a substance known as P30. Think of it as a performance enhancement drug because it boosts physical prowess while making them obedient. P30 on its own doesn't last very long, so the device was created. Once the Scarab was removed from Jill in the video game, she is seemingly back to normal. In this movie, however, it wipes the memory of the individual. Claire has no memory of Alice whatsoever, and granted, they might have spent only a day or 2 together, but I feel like you'd remember someone saving your life. The middle part of the movie is just a giant nothing burger. They follow the signal and find the survivors in a locked building, and it just seems like a giant Dawn of the Dead reference, which, by the way, a fucking great movie. Go watch it. It's better than this entire 11 movie series so far. They do introduce Chris, you know, Claire's brother, and he goes in for a hug, and she pushes him off. Which, you know, I don't know, man. That it was just awkward. Also, Chris is played by Wentworth Miller, the guy who played Michael Scofield from Prison Break. And when they introduced him, he was locked in a cell. I feel like he should have been able to escape. I'm just saying, you know, it's you escaped multiple maximum prisons, but you can't escape a fucking cell. All right, dude. This movie came out in 2010, which was the hype time for 3D movies. So there's a lot of scenes with slow motion and objects flying onto the screen. None of it is good, but we are coming up on the ending. Turns out Arcadia is actually a giant ship, and it's being used by Umbrella to lure survivors to experiment on them. And they find all the survivors from the previous movie, including Kmart. But the best thing happens when Chris and Claire and Alice meet up with Wesker again, and they give us what I can only deem as the best video game to movie adaptation fight scene I've seen so far in these movies. Wesker beats the brakes off Chris and Claire and locks them in a cage. This was phenomenal. The way that they did it, the choreography of it. I mean, like, granted, a lot of it is edited, but it's just fine. I mean, I don't think anyone can move that fast. However, it was really good, which is also very, very close to the games, which was really awesome to see. Alex comes in later and kills Wesker because, you know, she's super badass. But he's not actually dead. So they set up a bomb in the plane as he runs off, and he blows up. There is an after credit scene that shows Jill Valentine commanding a bunch of Umbrella soldiers with the scarab on her chest, suggesting she's being mind controlled. And yeah, I don't know, man. Alice is like super fucking cool. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, was this movie good? Actually, yes. It was enjoyable from start to finish. I would recommend it if you like the Resident Evil series. This movie gets an S tier thanks to the story, progression, and action, and the best fight scene so far. Animated movies feel like a cheat code for a few reasons. One is that the characters resemble the game fairly well. Apart from Wesker and Afterlife, everyone else looked like they're cosplaying a character. Also, animated movies are much better than live action, and this movie is no different. The music is good, the voice acting is good, the animation is better than the previous animated movie, and the story is about a group of rebels who are fighting against the Soviet military power, since their part of the world contains valuable resources, and they end up requiring the use of bioweapons, which is why Leon is there to stop them from using it. I don't want to spoil much about this movie, just to let you know that it's so good, it actually dethroned the previous animated movie. Yes, both of them can be S rank, however, the last animated movie did not kill off the worst character, so it goes down to A rank, and this movie gets the very top of S rank. Super good, I highly recommend it. But let's get on to the next movie. This entire movie is just a giant continuity error, totally contradicting all the movies that came before it. First of all, the opening scene starts off where the bonus clip that ended the last movie, with Jill unleashing onslaught of Umbrella operatives on the survivors of Arcadia. However, the entire thing is in slow motion and reversed. Then we get a massive lore dump about the previous movies, and they show the Red Queen from movie 1, but it's a totally different girl, and she's not really that important. What is important is that after they show the opening of the movie again, they cut to Alice waking up in a lovely home with a deaf daughter and Carlos as her husband. I know, right? They killed him off in the third movie, but he's alive and well. But it's not just him. They also brought back the girl from FNAF. Michelle Rodriguez is her name, but I think it's funnier to call her the girl from FNAF. And yes, I'm aware it's Fast and Furious. Then a zombie outbreak happened in the suburban neighborhood she lives in. Carlos fucking dies. Alice and the daughter escape because Alice ends up sacrificing herself. Then she wakes up in an umbrella cage with Jill questioning her, asking her who she works for. Then the power cuts off and Jill becomes disabled and someone helps Alice escape. Then she's in Tokyo where another zombie outbreak happens and we spend some time in slow motion killing zombies. Then they introduce Ada Wong in the worst way imaginable. They just have Alice tell us who she is and who she works for.
My name is Ada Wong, operative for the Umbrella Corporation, one of Albert Wesker's top agents. I know exactly who and what you are.
Turns out Wesker is now working by himself and no longer for Umbrella. And they are actually in Alaska and not in Tokyo. And all of this is just simulation to trigger copies of Project Alice into becoming a super badass soldier like the main one, which totally defeats the purpose of the previous movie where we saw multiple Alices already being badass and good at everything. But I digress. They introduced Leon and Barry as well, and Leon acts so differently from the game. It's genuinely insane. He tells Alice that she shouldn't go after the child after she got taken away because Alice's life is more important than a child. Meanwhile, in Damnation, he literally disobeys a direct order to retreat so that he can stop people from using bioweapons against humans. So I don't know why they decided to go with that direction, the complete opposite of how Leon would act. Barry dies fighting Jill, and the final fight scene in this movie has the girl from Sorority Pillow Fight inject herself with the Las Plaga and instantly gets powers, which again contradicts what the Las Plaga does. Then we cut to Alice waking up in Washington, and Wesker gives her back her powers, even though 2 movies ago he took them away. But how are they gonna make another movie with no powers, you know? So now Alice is infected again. Yay! You'll notice that I skipped most of the middle part of the movie. It's all slow motion fights done poorly. There's not a lot of the lore or story here. There's just nothing really. The final scene shows everyone standing together, seemingly suggesting that they are now gonna work with each other against a greater evil, but knowing history of these movies so far, I doubt it. Overall, this movie sucked, dude. The thing that angered me the most was how they introduced Ada Wong. They really made it seem like Alice is omnipotent, which is silly. This movie gets D tier, which D stands for Dingleberry. D stands for dude, this movie fucking sucks. I almost don't want to review this movie. I honestly would rather just end the video here and move on with my life. This movie is so goddamn bad. I don't even know how to navigate telling you about it. First of all, the Washington ending we had last movie was actually a fake, and it was a trap all along set by Wesker. After Alice wakes up, she hears sirens and make her way to a building where the Red Queen from the first movie and every other movie tells her that she wants her to stop her from destroying the world, and she only has 24 hours to do so. By the way, they changed the girl a 4th time. I don't know if I mentioned this, but they keep changing what she looks like because the original actors keep getting older since these movies are far apart. Unimportant, but I noticed it while watching the movies, and yeah, you know what, I gotta tell you about them, you know? It's very important and apparent to mention that Raccoon City was nuked. I don't know if that wasn't clear, but Raccoon City got nuked, and the area where it got nuked is directly above where the hive is. So the Red Queen tells Alice to head back to the hive and shut her off fully. On her way back to the hive, she encounters Dr. Isaacs that she killed in the 3rd movie. Also, by the way, I said hive too many times in that one. I'm gonna try to stop myself from saying hive again. Hive. And he's now a religious nut who kidnaps people and keeps them in cages. Alice says he's another clone, but he says he's the original. This is important for later. She manages to escape and makes her way to what seems to be the last hope for humanity, a resistance that formed thanks to Claire, who we get to see again. And there's this new guy, but it's very clear from the start that he's gonna betray everyone because he's very interested in asking too many questions about Alice and is ready to jump to her defense. She tells them the plan and what they need to do, so they start making their way towards the hive, and slowly but surely they get taken out one by one. During this time, the real Dr. Isaacs wakes up and the whole narrative of the movie changes. Turns out, Wesker was just a lackey all along, working for Isaacs, which I had a huge issue with because they had a perfect villain with superhuman strength and speed that can only be matched with Alice. But as unreliable this movie is, they decided to make him a subordinate who is super loyal to Isaacs. Alice makes it to the bottom floor where both of them are held up. She gets betrayed by the guy, what a surprise, and she learns that there is a cure for the virus and it's airborne. But if she kills Isaacs down there, he will destroy the vial and the cure won't spread in the world. And then Alice that we've been following all along all this time was actually a clone because she doesn't have any childhood memories, and we see the original version of Alice and she's super old and in a wheelchair. The Red Queen is now on high alert, and all her defenses are killing anyone who doesn't work for Umbrella. So while Alice is under gunpoint, her and Isaacs have this Sherlock Holmes-esque fight in their mind where each one sees the chances and ways they can kill each other. The old Alice fires Wesker, which prompts a door behind him to close down on his leg and cuts it apart. The guy who betrays them gets shot, and they have a final boss fight between Alex and Isaacs, which sucks, and it ends up with Isaac getting cut down by the laser room. Who cares? Later, we learn that he didn't die, but the religious guy and him meet again, and he kills the original copy of himself, but that's for the ending. That doesn't matter. So here's my issue, man. The guy who was super fast and strong got folded by a fucking door. Why? Just makes no sense at all. At the end, the original Alice, who is in a wheelchair, records all her memories and gives it to the clone, which I suppose makes her the original now. And also she releases the cure to the world, and boom, everyone is healed. But oops, actually, what she released was a cure for the T-virus, and everyone else now has a parasite, not a virus, because they introduced the parasite already, and they introduced other people getting infected by a parasite and not a virus. Also, the world is fucking destroyed. There is literally no more civilization. You think people are gonna start working together or like trying to find ways to bring life back? No, man, it's over. It's done. Anyway, guys, I don't care. I'm happy it's over. This was extremely bad. I don't know if I mentioned, but Alice during this movie was married to the director who did these movies. So of course, she's more badass and better than everyone else. So, goddamn favoritism. This gets a D tier. Actually, if I could give it any less, I would. This gets the bottom of D tier. Actually, you know what? This movie is so bad, I don't even want to keep Extinction, which is the third movie next to these two. I'm moving Extinction up and leaving those two to rot. Next movie. I didn't actually think I'd be disappointed with an animated movie until I watched Vendetta. The entire plot is about a guy who can't move on from his wife's death and wants to unleash horror to the world. I know I'm minimizing what happened. The wedding actually got bombed, so he's mad at the world. However, Rebecca is in this movie, and he tries to force her into marrying him, so I don't feel bad for him all that much. He gets stopped by Leon and Chris, which in this movie had a lot more rougher appearance, and they already had been through a lot. So Leon is an alcoholic drinking himself away, and Chris is angry with everyone and refuses to be understanding. The movie itself is action-packed. I wasn't bored watching it like I was in the last one. I did find myself scrolling through Instagram reels while watching some of the live action movies. I knew what was happening without even looking at the screen. They explained everything through dialogue so effortlessly. But with Vendetta, I did pay attention and noticed that Leon doesn't care about people's safety. He rides his bike and throws grenades like candy a lot of the time, but I can't be mad at him. You know, he's been through a lot. It's fine. So what? He threw a grenade like on a path on top of a bridge and potentially could have killed multiple people. It's fine. They lived a happy life, probably. Honestly, I'd say this is just a skip. It's not great, but it's not bad either. The animation is really fantastic, and the fighting is even better, but very John Wick kind of style. Is it just okay to be put in the middle? No, it carries a lot of redeeming qualities, like the voice acting, the animations, the actions. If the story was a bit better, I would have given this an S tier, but it lacks in character development and storytelling. Not even the villain carries it to a higher rank. I'm giving this one an A tier. Next movie. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, man. Peak! I'm not talking about the game. Genuinely the most fun I've had watching these movies back to back, man. At this point, I was tired and didn't want to keep going, but this movie was so good, I couldn't help but applaud it. Do you realize how weird it is to be clapping in a room by yourself? It's weird, dude. It's weird. This movie follows the plot line of the first and second game as well, and it is perfection. They show everyone and how they got separated and why each person went where. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but if you want the best Resident Evil live action movie, then watch this movie. I don't even know how much more you want to hear about it. Go watch it. Easy S tier. I'm telling you, gang, go watch it. You can thank me later. It's one of those things you should not skip. This movie gets carried by the villain more than anyone else. Don't get me wrong, Leon is in this one, and yes, I am biased, but I gotta be honest, this villain is really good. Better than the last animated one. However, in terms of story, animation, and everything else, it's very lackluster. At the end of the day, it's just an okay movie, but turns out to be very boring. I also found myself to be rather annoyed at the amount of talking this villain does. His ideology is moral dilemmas. He infects Leon and everyone else and asks Jill to shoot them before they turn. If he was more aggressive and shot some of them himself, it would have been better, but he yaps like crazy. And while I did like him at the start, and his moral dilemma approach to a situation was very refreshing to see in Resident Evil movies, since almost all of them either wanted revenge or just wanted to destroy the world, he does feel like a fresher breath of air. But I did stop watching this movie because it was very boring in every other aspect. I didn't even excuse the animation because every animation has been great. The action is meh in this movie. It could have been better. None of the Resident Evil characters were enjoyable to see. If it was up to me, I would have taken the villain and put it in the previous animated movie and then have the story and action and animation and villain in that movie. And this one would be in D tier. You know, this one would be at like the very bottom. It didn't unfold the way that I would have liked. So it's okay. We can't have everything in the world. And that's it. That's it. I'm done. I am actually quite glad that I watched these movies. I hated most of the live action ones. I also now hate Alice for existing. Not a good character at all. Just not. I'm talking about the character, not the actor. I'm talking about solely the one I've seen from the movies. She's not a good character at all. Her entire existence was because the director wrote her in. It feels like a lot of it is favoritism. I kind of wish that they did exactly what Welcome to Raccoon City did. I mean, it is genuinely a perfect Resident Evil movie. I highly recommend it. Can't be mad at it. Can't go wrong. There are going to be some replacements that I'm going to be doing to the ranking, and this is going to be the final ranking as you can see it. The S tier go to Welcome to Raccoon City, top of S tier, perfect live action movie. Animated movie, Resident Evil Damnation, super good. Solid movie. Resident Evil Afterlife gets the S rank. A rank go to Resident Evil Degeneration and Vendetta. B tier, middle of the pack kind of thing. Inoffensive movies. They just exist for the sole purpose of existing. Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil Apocalypse. Apocalypse only exists for Mike Epps, and that's really about it. C tier, actually, I refuse to put Death Island on the same tier as Retribution and Final Chapter. I'm putting this in C tier alongside of Extinction because these movies were just boring. They had redeeming factors, but not a lot. D tier with 0 redeeming factors, nothing enjoyable to watch throughout these movies goes to Retribution and Final Chapter. Legitimately the worst 2 movies I've seen. I would not put them here at all. If I could, I would rank them lower than anything, so it would be C, A, B, C, and then every other alphabet letter, and then at the very bottom would be Z, and that's where I would put those 2, and then everything else would be the very top. Anyway, I'm done. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give it a like, and I will see you in the next one. I'm gonna go to bed. Good night. Bye bye.